see if we can educate you guys on what's happening in our country. In the United States, we think that we're dealing with an environmental movement and that we're protecting things. And that is the responsible thing to do. I'm a person who loves trees, I love grass, I love water. But the truth of it is that the people behind this movement could care less about your grass or your water or your trees. They care about taking your land out from under you and possessing it. Because the two things that make us free in this country are our ability to worship God and our ability to have private property. And if we take away our private property rights, we take away our wealth, and with that wealth goes our power and our government. And so there's a movement going on, and they consider the United States of America to be the one country that is blocking them from accomplishing all that they want to do. And the reason it's blocking it is because of the Constitution, because of our private property, and because of our right to worship God. So if they can destroy that, they will have accomplished what they want to do. And unfortunately, they've come a long ways with it. And I'll tell you that we're hanging by a string. But we're going to try today to educate you guys on exactly what's being done and how, so that we can protect ourselves from what's happening throughout the world. I'm convinced that we can win this. I think losing this is not even a possibility. Okay, Agenda 21 is what we're here to talk about, but actually we're here to talk about a whole movement that people sometimes now call Agenda 21. It is the Earth Summits, and it's a thing that's happening very covertly. When I found that, I thought this is the perfect thing from the Bible to describe. Professing themselves to be wise, they became fools and changed the glory of the incorruptible God into an image made like corruptible man, and to birds and four-footed beasts and creeping things. Wherefore God also gave them up to uncleanliness through the lust of their own hearts, to dishonor their own bodies between themselves, who changed the truth of God into a lie, and worship the creature more than the Creator, who is blessed forever. Amen. Okay? All right, guys. Earth Day. Earth Day was brought to us in 1970 by Nixon, at the same time as he brought us EPA. But what people didn't notice is that Earth Day was created on the 100th anniversary of Lenin's birthday, April 22nd. So every time you look at an Earth Day sign, you're looking at a Lenin sign in essence, because that's who it's catered to. I want you to pay attention to all the things that they use Earth for, like Mother Earth, the Gaia, the religious cult. Earth Summits introduce United Nations trees. We had one just lately, 2 weeks ago in Rio. Earth Council, established by Maurice Strong. I'm going to let you know who that guy is, and I don't think you'll like him. Earth Charters. It's an environmental charter that is styled to the Soviet Union Charter, which is also the United Nations Charter. All right, the Green Connection. I want you guys to see what's behind the whole thing. The Green Party. I'd never heard of the Green Party until lately. The Green Party is a communist party. Global Green, Green Cross, let's start with that, International, is owned by Mikhail Gorbachev, and it's run out of what used to be one of our bases in California. He also owns Global Green USA. It is his United States arm of Green Cross. Greenpeace works in conjunction with them. When you hear Occupy Wall Street, the Occupy movement, that's functioning through Greenpeace. Red is green. We're moving into a new world, the world of communism. We shall never turn off the road. That is, the red road is now the green road, and it leads to socialism. Mikhail Gorbachev made that remark. The green movement pillars. When you see environment, social, and economic, those are its pillars. Environment, sustainable, is one of their words. That means population control. So when you see the word sustainable, they're not talking about doing something to keep things healthy. They're talking about Club of Rome, population control, too many people equals a dying earth, CO2, all these things. Social justice. You're constantly going to hear Barack Obama talk about social justice, economic justice. That's a communist movement, is what that is. Diversity. When they talk about diversity, they're talking about North-South. They're talking about economies. The United States is considered North. We're considered a rich country. South is considered the poor countries, third world countries. They want to balance us. They want to put us all on the same beam. I brought in the Communist Manifesto because if anybody's ever read the Communist Manifesto, they'll see that all the pieces of this are catered straight to the Communist Manifesto. Beyond Independence, this is a book that I read that I wanted people to notice that in the very beginning of the book it says, in order to use nuclear weapons as political leverage, a country must be militarily, technologically, and economically strong. Countries need not be rich and powerful to employ environmental issues as leverage. This book is, the foreword on it is by Maurice Strong. The introduction is by Stephen Rockefeller. Okay, let's get into the United Nations. The United Nations is an establishment that was brought in by Roosevelt in '42, and many brag that it's called the League of Nations too. The League of Nations started a communist movement. If anyone ever studies the history of it, sees that it was disbanded by the Americans, and then they brought it back through the United Nations. It has a Soviet Union charter. The Soviet Union has 3 members on the General Assembly, and it has 3 members, 3 judges on the World Court. So it's a little bit tweaked to them, not to us. The IUCN, I want everyone who wants to look into this movement to look into IUCN, because that's the heart and soul of this thing. This is the International Union for Conservation of Nature. It was put together in '48. It's the only environmental organization with a seat at the UN General Assembly. This is a portion, this is an environmental motor off the United Nations. It plays a role on global environmental governance, and it has a global to local, local to global reach, and it functions for social justice and economic justice. The IUCN's purpose is to promote alternative models of sustainable communities and lifestyles based in eco-spiritual practices and principles to accelerate our transition to a just and sustainable future. They believe in pantheism. It is nature over man. It is the opposite of what you'll read in Genesis in the Bible. Humanity must undergo a radical change in its attitudes, values, and behavior. In response to this situation, a new global ethics is taking form, and it is finding expression in international law. That is exact wording off of their site. I won't go into this a lot, and I'll leave it to Dr. Kaufman, but IUCN's legs are the World Resource Institute and the World Wildlife Fund, and EPA is a member of the IUCN. So EPA is not just some federal agency. EPA works with the IUCN through the United Nations on implementing these treaties and such. EPA has a contract that I found with UNEP, and I'll get into UNEP in a minute, and I ask people to keep an eye on FEMA. FEMA overreaches itself greatly, and it's not only created through United Nations regulations, but it comes off UN articles also. Okay, let's get into the Earth Charter. The Earth Charter is the Bible behind all this thing. It was co-authored by Mikhail Gorbachev and Maurice Strong, and it is it's a charter. It's the United Nations Charter made earthy. It's got lots of green stuff in it, and if you'll read it, it's nasty. It calls to destroy everything that we know. The Earth Council Organization, this is Maurice's thing, despite the disappointing setback of no official agreement towards People's Earth Charter, Maurice Strong forged ahead with Rockefeller's banking to form his Earth Council Organization for the express purpose of helping governments implement UNCED sustainable development within which Agenda 21 has outlined. So, the biggest thing I want you to understand is that they consider this thing to be greater than anything we have in the United States, and they want to outdo our law, our governance, the whole thing through this. The Earth Charter, they consider it to be the 10 Commandments. The Charter's founding proponents, Mikhail Gorbachev and Maurice Strong, both have referred to the Charter as New 10 Commandments, and so they have a kind of strange religion thing going. The Earth Charter backers included Stephen Rockefeller, has fashioned an Ark of Covenant, and I'll show you that later, a look-alike, which is the Ark of Hope, to house the Sacred Charter. The Earth Charter Power. The UN language, the Charter promotes abortion using terms for reproductive health and responsible for reproduction, homosexuality. It works through a lot of nastiness. It works through Planned Parenthood, on and on and on. The Global Transformation Movement, a final version of the Earth Charter was issued by the Commission in March. The Earth Charter was drafted in coordination with a hard law treaty. That's important, not soft law. That is designed to provide an integral legal framework for all environmental development and law policy. The hard treaty is called International Covenant on Environment and Development, and Dr. Kaufman's going to get into that some more for you. The new international economic order. I went a little bit into it, just kind of showing you some dates so that you understand that this has been going on for a while. This didn't just start happening last year or last week. Mikhail Gorbachev, he established Green Crescent to manage international, environmental, and religion for the New World Order. This man hates Judeo-Christian. He is against it. Just like our president doesn't like Judeo-Christian, this man can't stand it. He connects the Club of Rome and the United Nations activity. He linked world socialists, NGOs, social internationalists, which is headed by Gro Harlem Brundtland. I'll show you who she is in a minute. And the stated purpose was to homogenize lawmakers, religious leaders, and environmental activists to push for a green world order. Green Cross Mother Earth. This guy has a strange religious attitude. He doesn't believe in God. He works off of a belief that's opposite of anything that's Christian. The Green Cross mission, with the help of United States government, is to recruit and convert mainline Christian churches, congregations, as well as evangelists, fundamental Christians, to a world socialist cause with green rather than a red banner. Gro Harlem Brundtland. This is an important lady. These guys have resumes you would not believe. Gro Harlem Brundtland is the founder and chair of the Brundtland Commission, formerly known as the World Commission on Environmental Development. She's the former Director General of the World Health Organization. That's important. Right now we have the healthcare bill going on. We're bringing doctors onto electronic medical record system. We're hooking all the pieces. These guys are building a machine. She's the Vice President of the World Socialist Party. She's the author of Our Common Future, and she coined sustainable development. She established UNCED. The UNCED Earth Summit of 1992, she was the vice chair to it. She established We Said to bring in the Brundtland Commission through Our Common Future, called for World Conservation Bank, which is owned by the Rothschilds. She's involved in a lot of things. She's a deadly lady. Her partner is Maurice Strong. He's a big backer of all this. He's the founder and the first Secretary General of UNEP, driving force behind the birth and the imposition of Agenda 21. Following the Earth Summit, Maurice was named Assistant Secretary General of the United Nations and was appointed a position of Chief Policy Advisor, member of the UN's Commission on Global Governance, and key architect of the Kyoto Protocol. This guy, hopefully I have it here, Maurice is a character that he put together UNEP, UNDP, UNEP's behind the land, UNDP's behind water movement. In '47, he befriended John McCloy, which was the president of the World Bank and a good friend of the Rockefellers, and that's how he started moving into some of the Rockefeller funds in order to implement the things that he's done. In '81, he was the World Wildlife Fund president. He worked behind Kofi Annan. He was the senior advisor. You always want to be the senior advisor. Valerie Jarrett is the senior advisor to our president, and that woman is so deeply pushing this stuff. And nobody sees the senior advisors or what they do. This guy got behind Kofi Annan and started really pushing this environmental movement through the United Nations, and he was the background guy, and he doesn't like to be known or seen, and you don't really hear his name much. He was the senior advisor on the Commission of Global Governance, served on the Brundtland Commission, founder of World Economic Council, director of World Future Society, head of the Earth Council, and member of Club of Rome. Took part in this book, and this book is Our Global Neighborhood. And the biggest deal is I want you to notice that in it says, like, towards a rapid reaction capability for the United Nations. This report calls for a volunteer UN army under UN command and UN police station in every region of the world. That's worldwide communism. The Rockefellers, I just wanted you to notice that although the Rockefellers they're very wealthy. They're going to be involved in a lot of things. That's just logical. But a lot of the bills that they were behind, rather than just simply trying to help create a bill that would be good for Earth, because we do need to take care of our land and our water and everything, they tweaked them to where they would kind of serve in this other purpose. And the Adirondack State Park was one of their first templates that they kind of work off of. Okay, I want you guys to pay attention to Earth summits, because when people say Agenda 21 or biodiversity, or it's a bunch of Earth summits. They have these Earth summits, and at these Earth summits, they introduce treaties that are written by the International Union for Conservation of Nature, and those treaties, if signed in to the United States, becomes law. If we ratify a treaty then because of Article 6 of the Constitution, that thing's law. Right now, they are trying to get a treaty passed in here that disarm us, take away our Second Amendment rights. And so we need to pay attention to all the things that they're doing at these Earth Summits. They don't talk about these Earth Summits on TV very much. We don't know they're even happening. And yet they are writing treaties. In 1981, they wrote the Biodiversity Treaty. They introduced it in 1992. These guys are way ahead of us. The UN Millennium Declaration. I wish I could have played a film for you, but we don't have time. It is by George Bernard Shaw. The UN Millennium Declaration is the backbone of this movement. It is the thought process behind it, and it believes in utilitarianism. And utilitarianism is a George Bernard Shaw thing where he believes that you should only live and breathe if you serve a purpose that qualifies you for eating and living from the earth. Otherwise, you are taxing it. And so he doesn't believe in letting our seniors stay alive past what he considers to be their worth. And he believes in something that I consider to be cruel. It does not value life. It is their version of. I want you to pay attention to the fact that with these different treaties that they bring, they go into different parts of the world and they have these meetings. And at these meetings, they introduce different parts. I've read all these documents. Some of them are 1,000 pages long, and I've had to read them 4 times to understand them. But like the Doha Declaration is about finance, and the Al-Amadi is about the transits, the buses they're trying to put in. All of you hear about Florida. They're trying to do the little trains and stuff. That's about that. They want us out of our cars. Habitat 1, human settlements, those are sustainable communities. In Navarre, they're trying to do the Navarre Town Center. That's a Habitat 1 sustainable community. Sustainable communities are different from regular projects for 2 reasons. Number 1, you help finance them, private-public partnership. That means your tax dollars. Number 2, they have urban boundary zones. Go to look at any subdivision you see put in. We don't do urban boundary zones. And that urban boundary zone is like Roundup on grass. We have all these different fisheries. That's Reykjavik. Yeah, they go to different parts of the country. They introduce a treaty, and we don't hear about it until we're living with it. One of them was Habitat 1, human settlements. This one's very important. What you'll notice about it is they want to control land use through zoning and planning, and they want to take away our property rights. And so the sustainable communities that are going in all over the world come off of this template. They also introduced biodiversity, and I'll get into that later today, but we use the UN Treaty on biodiversity every time we build a house or a dollar store or a subdivision, because we have to do an environmental study, and that environmental study comes off this United Nations treaty. They also introduced climate change in Agenda 21, and to explain to you the backbone of it, biodiversity is about controlling land and water. Agenda 21 is about controlling people, and climate change is about a taxation. And it's a taxation that doesn't come to the United States, it's going to the UN. Johannesburg Plan of Implementation was another one of the Earth Summits, and in that one they got more into structuring our whole life than the Agenda 21 did. They advanced everything, and they went more into religion, energy control, education. They wanted to really get in our schools between 2005 and 2015. Oceans and fisheries, healthcare, sustainable development. They all function off Millennium Declaration. The pathway to Agenda 21, George Bush, this stuff looks good, people. And so when these guys talk to our elected officials, they make it look warm and fuzzy. And our elected officials think they're taking part in doing something good, like preserving our earth. And so they sign on to it, not knowing what they're really signing on to. And so George Bush and Clinton helped heavily, and Clinton got deeply involved. He passed executive orders and such to bring it in, and then he got involved in NAFTA and all this, which is part of this thing. The USA's role, I want you to notice at the bottom where it says EPA International Working Document, August 6, 1993, states the executive branch should direct federal agencies to evaluate national policies in light of international policies and obligations, and to amend national policies to achieve international objectives without a congressional vote. This is big on go around Congress, do executive orders. Dates in history, I just want you to notice that in 81 ICUN was writing biodiversity. This stuff's been going on for years. The chain of command, it is at every level of our government, inside and out. We have 2 governments being set up through this thing. We have one that is our elected officials and the people that we employ, and then we have these agencies like EPA, Department of Energy, DEP, wildlife and fisheries, water management districts, all these, and we have no say in those. Those guys are a muscle. They can tell us what they're going to do to us. They can put us in jail for putting dirt on our grass. And so we have to be careful and watchful of what they can do and what power we've given them. Barack is so heavily involved in this movement, guys. I mean, he wakes up in the morning saying, what can me and Valerie Jarrett and Van Jones do today? And so he signed Executive Order 13575, which is the White House Rule Council. And that thing is aimed at taking away the lifestyles of our people in the country and our farmers. It really is shaped at crippling them. When you heard EPA talking the other day about, and the Department of Ag about changing things for farmers to where teenagers can't work on the farm and all these rules, that's coming straight off of that thing. Transfer of technology, they really want to do this one, and we're doing it. He's sending stuff all outside from us. Giving away our secrets and everything else. Green energy, all these green energy companies, all this green energy funding, they're funneling money to each other. It's bankrupting us, and it's part of this. They're sending billions to the United Nations. Hillary Clinton a couple weeks ago sent $2 billion to the United Nations and says she's sending them $100 billion. We're so broke we can't pay our bills, and yet they're funding the United Nations, and the United Nations is not accountable to any of us. They do what they want with the money. There's a shadow government in the White House. Hillary Clinton, George Soros, many people are in it. Just read the book White Shadow Government, and it's a real eye-opener. The stimulus spending for green jobs, there's so much here that he's involved in that every time this man speaks, we need to be looking and seeing what he's really up to. This is something that I found in it that I think is important because he speaks to it a lot. And I've even heard, I haven't read the health care bill, but I've heard that this is in it. In many of today's cries, it is clear that an early intervention could have prevented later negative developments. This underlines the need for a highly trained UN volunteer force that is willing, if necessary, to take combat risks. This would be particularly useful in low-level but dangerous conflicts, such as international volunteer force would be under the exclusive authority of the Security Council. That's dangerous. We can't allow them to implement stuff like that. We elect people to protect us, and we have got to make sure that they are able to do that we don't allow the United Nations to work through in a back door that takes that away. In our state capitol right now, we have Valerie Jarrett, who's the senior advisor to Barack. We have Richard Trumka, head of the AFL-CIO, who's right there in the thing all the time. That's a communist union. And then we have Andy Stern, SEIU, that's a communist union. These guys are taking people's paychecks without asking. It used to be in the 70s that we watched movies about our police arresting people in the mafia. Now we're watching Jimmy Hoffa get on the stage, curse the Tea Party, and talk about killing them, which really exposes me to understand that the mafia is taking our police officers' paychecks before they even get them and spending them with no, they don't even need to ask. And so our world is upside down. And how dare our president walk on that stage right behind him with a smile on his face? That man just talked about killing Americans. How dare us be right here? Van Jones is a commie. He's a green commie. He's behind the green movement. And there's not a nice thing about this guy. He was in our White House and he got exposed and they threw him out the back door the next day, but he's still working with them and he's doing it diligently. I'm going to just hit this real quick. This is not just a global movement for green. This is a religious movement. People need to know that. When you see the Gaia, they're always putting the Gaia out there in the New Age of Aquarius. That's the religious arm. The Ark of Hope that I told you about that replaces the Ark of the Covenant. That's it. It's in front of the Johannesburg Plan of Implementation stage. That's an Earth Summit that happened in 2002. There's the little picture that's on the front of it, and that picture is a picture of the Master Dua Kal. He was created by Alice Bailey, who says she channeled him. She owned Lucius Trust and Lucius Printing, changed the name to that from Lucifer's Trust and Lucifer's Printing, big on Luciferianism, and so is Saul Alinsky and quite a few others, Maurice Strong, all those guys. This is not just a green movement. This is an evil anti-God movement. This is a book she wrote, and in it she talks about a world order and the world servers, and she was behind the goodwill, the world goodwill. And I'm noticing like crazy, there are world goodwills coming up everywhere. I don't know what that's about. And then here's the Georgia Guidestones. These are in Georgia. We think they were put together by Ted Turner, who's big in all this movement. He controls CNN. It funds these things heavily, believes in population control heavily, part of the Club of Rome. Here's a book that is written by all these characters, the Club of Rome characters, Maury Strong and all of them. And in it, on the 3rd page, you'll see it says, the world has cancer, and cancer is man. And on the Georgia Guidestones at the bottom, you'll see it says, be not a cancer to earth, leave room for nature, leave room for nature. That's what I'm going to show you as the history of this whole movement of what's going on, and now I'm going to hand you to a professional that can really open your eyes as to what's happening. Thank you.